Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here with another edition of Lives on Lockdown. And my guest is again the wonderful George Weiss, and he's got an update on his latest project. That's coming up straight after this break. Right, George, you're on the line. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've lengthened my name. I'm no longer just Rainbow George. I'm now Wondering Rainbow George. And I'm wondering about all sorts of things. And mainly this film that hopefully we're going to be putting together soon, Under the Rainbow, with the Spirit of Truth auditions.
Yes, we spoke about that last time, and you said you've expanded it now from the original 8 you were thinking. You want to go for 9.
9, it was going to be 8 doing 7 minutes. Now I'm thinking of 9 doing 6 minutes, and me doing a 6-minute, not being part of the audition, so that then we could get the hour together like that. So 9 times 6 is 54, and another 6 makes 60.
I know. So, that sounds wonderful. And do you have the scripts, because they're all going to do the same script, and we've heard some of them on that. Do you have the script with you at the moment?
No, I'm playing around with that.
Okay.
I'll have it within the next couple of days, or have a couple of different versions maybe. It's exciting. Two people that I'd like to get to audition. One is Russell Brand, and another would be this American Jewish rabbi who believes in Jesus. His name is Jonathan Cahn, C-A-H-N. He's written 4 or 5 insightful books about the Bible, and has discovered some wonderful things, but he can't see that he really believes in the mythical stories, what can clearly be shown to be mythical stories. And I'd love to get Jonathan Cahn to audition to play the part, because I can show the truth that lies behind the mythical Bible stories, for me it's been 44 years ago, nearly 44 years ago, a voice in my head that I was made to suppose belonged to a friend of mine who died a few years earlier, guided me to read the Bible and to understand that everything was scripted, and it was all linked to Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They had their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. And I was shown that was exactly the story that the Bible was telling, was a scripted play that has 7 ages in it, and that we are living towards the end, I think very close to the end of the 6th act, which is the apocalypse, which I read as being the collapse of the establishment, the established powers, and then you get supposedly 1,000 years of peace that leads up to Armageddon. And it's for me, the creator of creators, the most high God that and Lord gods in the Bible produce and direct. That most high God, who is mentioned in the Bible but never speaks in the Bible, has a wicked sense of humour, and I've just been concentrating on the Bible book of Ecclesiastes, which is supposedly King Solomon speaking from beyond the grave. And I love chapter 7, verse 1. A good name is better than precious ointment, and death than the day of one's birth. I love that. It's especially with what's happening in our world at the moment.
Absolutely. And
this is telling us to look forward to death, essentially.
As a thing.
Another line where it says to everything that there's a purpose and a time and a season, and one of the lines is a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. That's the time we're living in. But the spirit of truth, whoever plays the part will be, says he will show you things to come.
Right. So you mentioned George, that the 7 ages, and we're currently in the. Talk us through the different ages and where we are exactly on in terms of those.
Well, in the book of Revelation, the last book in the Bible, there are 22 chapters in it, and that lays it out with the messages to the 7 churches and their messages to the 7 churches. And I can show clearly that 5 of those churches are in the past, and we're the 6th church, the Church of Philadelphia. And the Church of Philadelphia mentions the synagogue of Satan. And the synagogue of Satan is clearly Peter's church. The Church of Rome is the synagogue of Satan, clearly, because when Jesus formed his church on Peter and explained how he had to go down to Jerusalem and lay down his life, and Peter remonstrated with him, and Jesus realized that he'd formed his church on the wrong person, and he says to Peter, get thee behind me, Satan, for you comprehendest not the things that be of God, but only the things that be of men. So that's the link to identifying Peter as representing the synagogue of Satan. But it's all part of the humour. I mean, Jesus himself, Jesus Christ, fits into the passage where it's talking about the beast in Revelation and his number being 666, and it can be shown that Jesus is the Antichrist, and that's all part of the humour of this whole play that we're involved in. And as I say, a creator who has a wicked sense of humour. And
so talk me through that as a concept then. If you're saying that Jesus is the Antichrist, that's the anti-Jesus.
Yes, Jesus says in one of the Gospels, think not that I come to bring peace on earth, I come with the sword to create division. the important gospel for us is John's gospel and the prophecy about the spirit of truth. John's gospel was written, I think, something over 100 years after the events were supposed to have happened, and it's astonishing that people can't see what is plain to see. The first two Gospels were supposedly written, I don't know, 40, 50 years after the events were supposed to have happened. And those two Gospels both clearly portray Jesus as being the false prophet, because he's made to prophesy in those two Gospels that he's going to return in great splendor and all sorts of signs and wonders are going to happen, and that's all going to happen while the generation that he's speaking to will still be alive, and those Gospels come out after that generation has passed away, and each Gospel is made to contradict the other plainly. I mean, on its simplest level, the four Gospels, the inscription on the cross, and what happens on the cross, each writer sees a different inscription, and each writer sees something that the others didn't see. And in the book of Acts, it says 3 times that he was hung from a tree, no mention of a cross. So these are the 5 past ages, and I say we are the 6th age, and we go back all the way. We go back all the way to the biblical 9/11 story, and the Tower of Babel. Babel means the gate of God, and it talked of a people who all spoke the same language, and they were united, and they come together, and they want to build this city in a tower whose top would reach unto heaven. They want to reach the gate of God, and the Lord comes down, and he said the people are all one. They all have one language, and anything they imagine to do, they're able to do. So let us go down and there confound their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech, and let us scatter them abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And so the Lord is responsible for all our divisions, essentially, if you go back to that as the beginning of life as we know it on this earth, and the Lord in the Bible is the Lord is the God of this world. The Lord is the God of this world in the Bible is Lucifer, Satan, the devil, and it's the Trinity of the first creation story, which was God, and the second one, the Garden of Eden, the Lord God, and we are like the Lord's world, and it's all deep.
Right. So to help me understand a little bit, George, run me through the 7 ages again. What are the 7 ages? What are they called, and what do they each represent?
Each represents a world that has come to an end, like the history of this planet. The 5 ice ages there have been. They link to that, but the stories are telling the story of this universe, essentially, and different worlds and different powers. But the bottom line is that everything is scripted. everything is being cosmically produced and directed,
and as you say, Shakespearean way, but we are but players. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
I mean, Isaiah is come now and let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. That's showing us, it's telling us we're not responsible for our actions. We're being made to do whatever it is we're doing. Jeremiah says, O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. And again in Ecclesiastes, we're saying when you see the oppression of the poor and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter, for he who is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. So it's telling us that there are much higher powers than the powers that speak in the Bible. The Bible, gods and lords, are just the producers and the directors of the script that was written by the Most High God, Captain Rainbow.
Right. So if you're looking at life, if you like, as a whole thing, as a play, taking the Shakespearean analogy to its logical conclusion, and the 7 ages of the 7 parts, or if you like, of the play, what is each age called? What's it called?
I don't have a name. I don't have a name
for each age. Okay.
For the ages that have gone. It's but I'm just made to see that we're coming to the end of the 6th age, which is the collapse of the establishment, and the spirit of truth will share a vision of a world of wonders, a world that has no countries in it, a world that is peaceful and harmonious and leisure-oriented, and a world that has just one bank in it and one electronic currency called the Wonder, and the whole world will work for the bank, and then the bank will be made to work for the whole world. The bank will be an artificial intelligence that will be created to play the part of a truly loving God and look after all of us, give us each day our daily bread, and 100 wonders a day maybe, and much more besides.
Right. And now you've obviously, George, you've got quite a bit of history with Russell Brand as well. You mentioned him for being one of the people who will audition as for the role of the Spirit of Truth.
I'd like him to audition. I've had no contact with him for years now. We met originally because he had come to Parents Walk with a friend of his to see where Peter Cook used to live, and we met in the Mews, and then years later I found myself connected to him, and I was on his radio show a few times, which was fun. But I've not spoken to him for years now. It's but I fancy that he is going to audition. It's got another actor involved, Judd Charlton. Do you know of an actor called Judd Charlton?
Judd, tell me about Judd.
chap I met some years ago, he was in a play playing the part of Ian Dury, and he was very good in it. And he's an actor. He's